Hello everybody, this is Mrs. Mancina again, and what I'm going to do is read aloud my example literary analysis essay for you so you can see how I approached this essay, and I'm going to highlight some of those important key things that you should also include in your essay. So let's go ahead and take a look at my essay. So as you can see, we start off with a heading and my title in the middle here, and then we start off with my introduction. Notice that my introduction starts with a hook and then ends with my thesis statement. Dylan Thomas died only 1 year after publishing one of his most famous poems, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. He was rumored to have been a wild man himself, indulging heavily on alcohol. Did he take his own advice given in this poem? In Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, Dylan Thomas shows that we should live life fully without regrets so we do not have to fight the end of life on our deathbeds. Alright, so that's the first section of my essay. Now we're going to move into my body paragraphs, and I ended up writing 4 different body paragraphs for this essay. Although death is not explicitly mentioned in the first stanza of Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, it is obvious that Thomas is using a metaphor to describe it. In line 1, do not go gentle into that good night. Night represents death. He also writes that close of day and dying of the light, which suggests again the metaphor of night being death and day being life. The tone of the first stanza is passionate and even angry as he tells us to burn in rage at death. Rage is again repeated in the final line of the stanza. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, thus giving a sense of insistence and urgency to the tone of this poem. Now here's my next body paragraph. You can notice that I use a transition word here. Subsequently, Dylan Thomas then begins to give examples of why different men, I should say, rage against the dying of the light when on their deathbeds. He states that wise men fight death because they realize their words did not have an impact on others. Good men fight death because they realize that they haven't had a chance to see the results of their deeds. Wild men fight death because they realize that they did not appreciate how quickly life would end. And finally, grave men fight death because they finally see the beauty of life. So in this paragraph, I just summarized what the poem is about and analyzed what I thought Dylan Thomas was trying to say. Let's move on to my next body paragraph. Also, throughout all of these stanzas, Thomas uses imagery of light to represent the goodness of life. 2 examples are sun in flight and blaze like meteors. He also repeats rage, rage against the dying of the light and do not go gentle into that good night 4 times each throughout this poem, showing the importance and urgency of his message. In the 5th stanza, Thomas also uses an oxymoron, blinding sight, and describing the revelation some men make as they are dying. Using this oxymoron describes the irony of how we can see so clearly at death what should have been apparent for our entire lives. He is showing us that we should live life without regrets now rather than fighting to make the most of our lives as they are dying. All right, let's move on to the next slide with the next body paragraphs. Here's my final body paragraph. Remember I had 4. Most importantly, we see who Thomas is addressing in this poem in the final stanza. He states, and you, my father, there on a sad height. Thomas's father is dying, and he is imploring him to fight death. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. We see why we see why his message is so important and pressing and why he has repeated those lines over and over again. He is not just speaking to the general population but to his beloved dying father. Thomas uses another oxymoron, fierce tears, and again the tone of this final stanza is passionate and angry, but now is also sad. He is both enraged and troubled by his father's death and wishes that he had more time to live life to the fullest. Alright, so you'll notice in all of those body paragraphs I used citations and I used direct quotes from the poem. I put in quotation marks as well as my own personal analysis. Now let's move on to the conclusion. Through his poem, Dylan Thomas helps to realize that we should thoughtfully embrace life now so we don't have any regrets as we are dying. He challenges us to not be one of the people he describes in his poem that realizes the magnificence and splendor of day too late and then must rage and fight against death. So you'll notice at this very last paragraph here, I restate my thesis and then end with some sort of clincher. So I hope that was helpful for you to listen to me read my example essay aloud with a little bit of commentary. I wish you the best of luck in writing your literary analysis essay. I really can't wait to see what you